Welcome to Big Blend Radio, where we celebrate variety and how it adds spice to quality of life. So it is the fourth Sunday, and that means Joey Stuckey is here on Big Blend Radio. And wow, you've been doing this how long with us now? It's music talks time, but today we're going to be talking about
how long have we been together? It feels like we've always done it.
Yeah, we all feel married to each other. You know,
We
Joey's
do.
married to Jennifer, and
Yeah.
Nancy and I, even though we're mother and daughter, in some weird way married.
Yeah.
It's Nancy's yelling at me from the other room now for saying that, but
Good,
not in a
good.
weird way. It's not a weird thing. It's just we're all attached. Let's put it that way.
That's
and have
right.
each other-
We're all spiritually connected.
Absolutely. We're all attached and we all have each other's back, so don't mess with us.
That's right.
But yeah, I mean, you've been on the show for so long, and we talk about, you came on with one of your singles, and we connected from there, and we've always talked about your music, but you also have an amazing recording studio, and you're a producer. Everyone knows, also the music ambassador of Macon, Georgia, which is the capital of Southern rock, y'all. And Nancy and I have had the privilege and honor to meet you in person and also visit the studio and see where you do all this magic work. And for those who don't know, Joey Stuckey is a blind musician and, just an incredible producer. And you wouldn't believe this until you go there and you see Joey walk around. He knows where to put his finger on anything. Well, just saying. And he's got this amazing studio, though, that you just wouldn't understand that he knows what the heck he's doing, and he does. He's got an incredible pair of ears, and that's this amazing gift he has, but he also knows what needs to happen. And when I finally get something recorded, I've had one song recorded on a friend's album, but it was done according to what she needed. I was like, how am I going to make this happen? Like, I got nervous and I realized I had no clue what I was doing. I was totally a fish out of water. And next thing you know, I was thrown into all these different things, which is a good thing because you have to challenge yourself. And I'm so glad I went through that experience. I learned what I do want to do and what I don't want to do. Those things, learning what you don't want to do is also a good lesson. And that's what we're going to talk about today. What is it like to record for the first time as a musician, a songwriter, an artist? And sometimes you may even want to do a recording as a songwriter to use as a demo to get out to people to sell the song. So there's all kinds of reasons and ways to record. Are you recording a single? Are you recording an EP, a full album? Who does that anymore? They do, thank God. But Joey, this is the thing. You do have to have some preparation because, it's like once you get in the recording studio, that like the taxi in New York.
Yeah, the clock's running, man.
It is.
And time is money.
It is.
Yeah. And the thing that's so important to realize is to have certain managed expectations. So one of the things that I do with every client is I give them a free 20-minute consultation where they come in, see the studio, ask any questions they have, meet me in person, and we talk about the project, what they want to do, and then we talk about how much they can afford to spend. And then then I can say, well, this is realistically what we can accomplish for your budget. So it's important to have a budget. You don't need to go broke trying to make a record. So it's real important. And the other thing about it is, whatever your budget for recording is, you should have at least that much set aside for promoting the record once it comes out, because there's this real misconception that, okay, I've made a record, I've spent the money, I've done the hard work, and now magically people are going to hear my music. And that's just not true. And so many people can, basically anybody that pays the fee can be on iTunes or Spotify or whatever. So there's lots of music out there, and you got to find a way of standing out from all that noise. So there's so many things to prepare for when you go into the studio. But the first thing to do is to try and have a realistic expectation. I had a band that said, okay, we've got $1,000, and with that is not much money for a 10-song, record.
You better make them 2-minute songs.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I said, look, what we can do, we can't do a fully polished, perfected, dot every I, cross every T record for that kind of money. But what we can do is basically a live in studio album.
Mm-hmm.
And, you're going to get 1 or 2 takes. And that's the way it used to be done with the Beatles and people like that. Now, keep in mind, the Beatles spent months and months and months and months making records, but they started off with the live session, and got the live take, and they had, multiple takes. Sometimes they had 20, 30 versions of the same song, and they picked the best one because of the technology limitations of the time. But today, there's not as much technology limitation, but you've got a budget limitation, a time limitation. So I said, if you guys are well rehearsed and you can do 2 takes for each song, then you can come in and we might be able to do this for you. But you've got to be well rehearsed. You got to know what you're going to do. You got to have a plan, so we're not wasting time talking about what we're going to do. We have a written down plan, and so we know exactly what we're going to do, when we're going to do it, the order we're going to do it in, who's playing what instruments, all these things. Especially if this band had multiple talented band members. Sometimes one guy was playing piano, sometimes another guy was playing piano. And what you want to do, I mean, it sounds simple, but what you didn't want to do is play the song where one guy's playing piano and then the next recording the other guy's playing piano. Why does
Right.
that matter? Because the volume levels change depending on how they play. So the way they play the instrument changes how I have it set up. And so what you want to do is play all the songs where musician number 1 was playing piano back to back, and then you play all the songs where musician number 2 is playing the piano back to back, and that saves you a bunch of time. And it doesn't sound like it, but it really does. But they came in not well rehearsed, not prepared, and of course did not accomplish their goals. Eventually what they did was I gave them the tracks and they ended up mixing it at home on their laptops, and it sounded terrible. And it just really, wasn't completed in the professional
Sometimes
manner.
cannot revive the dead.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, and the thing is, I mean, these were kids that were 20 years old. They've been playing their instruments for 4 or 5 years or 6 years. So they weren't bad musicians, but they didn't know anything about the studio. And so they were trying to do jobs they weren't suited for. It's like me as a blind person trying to drive a car.
But you've got a great song for that, Blind Man Driving.
But I mean, I'm not suited to that task. And no matter how hard I want to or how hard I try, that's something I'm not going to be able to do. So you have to realize where your limitations are and where you need assistance. But yeah, so the other thing, go ahead.
Just going to say, with that whole experience you're talking about, though, I think this is $1,000 is a lot, but it's not a lot. It is one of those great lessons for them as a band, because also the fact that they're now going to try and mix it, they're going to hear everything that they need to hear to fix things in the band and improve on. So I think they just went to school, is what I'm saying.
Well, that's exactly. I mean, there is something to that. I mean, if you can take away a broader understanding of the universe around you and become a better, wiser person from the experience, then you've done something successful. Even if it didn't meet the goal, there was benefit to it. But what was sad for me was, the songs were actually pretty good, but they just didn't know how to, the thing is, they had all the time in the world to do it at home. I gave them the multi-tracks to do it at home so they could spend literally as much time as they wanted on it. If they wanted to spend 10 hours a day on it, they could spend as much time as they wanted on it. But the problem was that there was no way realistically for them to become professionals overnight and mix the record where it was quality. So that's just not something that can happen. You can't, I may want to be a world-class drummer. I may even have some talent, but I still got to put my 10,000 hours in. There's still, it takes time to become really proficient at what you're trying to do. And so if you don't give yourself that time, then that's a real problem. And the other problem is, it's hard to, people can grow and change and develop as an artist, but it's hard to erase a first bad impression. And so I really feel like, you need to, if you can only afford to do one song, then do that one song and do it as good as you can. Like, do everything you can to make it as close to your vision as you want. And so maybe the album's not the right choice. Maybe focusing on fewer songs might be a better choice for you if you've got a limited budget. And the good news, though, is that they had unrealistic time constraints. So they wanted to do the album in one day, and they wanted to put it out in a couple of weeks and all this stuff. So they had really unrealistic time constraints. The good news is it doesn't matter to me whether it takes you 2 days to make the record or it takes you 3 years. It doesn't matter to me. Like, you can take your time. If you've got a budget of a few $100s a month, you don't have to pay $1,000. You can come in for 3 hours and work on something, and come in for another 3 hours and work on something, and come in for another. And you can spread that out over as long a period of time as you need. Just keep that in mind. Like, it doesn't all have to be done in one day. Especially if you're a professional band that does it full time for a living, that's a whole different situation. But if you're not in that situation, then, be reasonable and say, and the thing is, you really can't. The other thing that people need to kind of understand, you really can't get much done in less than 3 hours in the studio, because setup time is part of my expertise and part of what I have to pay for. I know what microphone to use for what instrument in what position. I know how to dial in the right sound on the equipment. I know how to set the right levels, but all that takes time. And if you think about it, let's make the math easy. Let's say you got a 3-minute song and we record that 3 minutes. Okay, after we're done recording it, what's the next thing that's going to happen? We got to play it back and let you listen to it and make sure you're happy with everything. Because in the moment, unless there's some sort of train wreck, it's really hard to know if you got that set. And then somebody's going to say, hey, let me make sure. I think I heard something back on that second chorus. Anyway, the point is, you may think, okay, it's a 3-minute song, so it should take 3 minutes to record. But in actuality, in a good session, in a professional session, in a session that's moving fast, it's going to take you 10 to 15 minutes just to figure out one song if you're lucky. Mm-hmm. So it takes a lot more time, because you got a 3-minute song. You got to say, we're recording. You got to stop recording. Then we got to save the file. Then we got to listen back to it and make sure that it sounds the way you want it to sound. Then usually what happens is somebody says, let me hear that first chorus again. And then we listen to the first chorus again. Then the band talks about whether we need to go in there and fix something. So there's all
this. And they have an argument.
Yeah, they really do. They really do. There's a lot of those. So I mean, that's it really takes a lot more time than you're thinking it's going to take, unless you do something like, I say, the live and studio record, where it is what it is, and it just, flaws and all, and you decide that you like it or you don't like it, or the human flaws give it character, or there's all these different things that you can consider. So anyway, the point is having a realistic expectation in both time and budget, which really are the same thing, and then having a roadmap of what you're going to do. And I try to sit down and work this out with my clients. And I end up spending, I say a 20-minute free consultation, but I really end up spending about an hour with the client by the time we do emails, and I clarify things and they ask me questions. And before we ever book the studio, I mean, I really give about an hour of my time away for free, just to try and help them get a roadmap so we're successful when they come in for however long they want.
Yeah, and if they don't follow the roadmap, that's on them. I mean, that's their money and their time and your time. And that's the thing. I think, you go in and you're going to play the song. Here's what it is. You've also got the musicians, like you're saying. It's not just like, hey, it's just me as a singer walking in. So you've got to look at actually scheduling everybody, which is a whole thing. And then someone's late, and that messes.
Oh yeah, and that's the worst thing. Like, if somebody's late, we can't get started because they're not there.
Yeah, you have to dial everyone in together. It's get all the gear in. I mean, the whole musician life of lugging the gear.
Oh, I know.
I mean, that's why musicians want residencies, y'all, so they don't have to keep lugging the gear.
I'm
tired of it.
I mean, most studios, not all, but most studios have a studio drum kit and have a studio, baby grand piano, and so I have both those things, and I encourage them to use them because they're already set up. So that's gonna save us. It takes about 30 to 45 minutes to set up a drum kit and get sounds.
Yeah.
So if you insist on bringing your drums, and that's fine if you want to, that's fine with me. I mean, I'm not saying don't bring your drums. If you've got a really great drum kit,
you're just saving money here.
But but I can save you 45 minutes of time if you bring your snare, your kick pedal, and your cymbals. That's about a 5-minute setup. If you bring all your drums, then that's about a 45-minute setup. So, I can save. Now, again, some drummers. There's a guy I worked with, Shannon Forrest. He's played with Taylor Swift and Toto, and he's an acquaintance of mine, and I got a chance to do a recording session with him. And this was in Nashville, where he's based, he has some crazy outlandish custom drum kit that's made from like imported wood from Australia, and like it's part of his thing.
Yeah.
And so, he brings his kit in. So, okay, if you've got that kind of thing, but he also is playing at a high level. He's playing with Taylor Swift and people like that.
Yeah.
So he's playing with people that have a budget and can afford to
Mhm.
spend an hour getting the drums sound. So you have to kind of keep those things in mind. Like, if it's better, because my drum kit's a good drum kit. It's a DW drum kit. It's a 7-piece kit. And I've got about 10 different snares you can choose from. And I've got probably about 8 or 10 cymbals you can choose from. So my kit's a good kit. Now, you may need something specific that you have to bring, but generally, but that's again why the consultation happens. I let the drummer go in there and play my drum kit for 5 minutes and see how they like it, and that can help them make the decision of
Because you have to
whether.
move it.
That's the thing.
Things.
If I have to break down my kit and set up your kit, that takes time.
I have a different kind of question. I know we're talking about for beginners right now.
Yeah.
But just in one of the things you were saying there, it's kind of dawned on me like how many, how many a gazillion musician interviews we've done over the years, right? And keep
Oh
doing.
yeah.
Yeah, dedicated 100%. New music out there, independence especially. We'll keep going. I remember especially, just so many albums happen across countries because of technology. And
Absolutely.
I was thinking that too, like, all right, so, you could be the most brilliant guitarist and you are wanted for a project overseas, right? And you're just going to
Yeah.
record it in your bedroom or, maybe I mean, especially touring musicians, right? Some do have their recording studio, but not everybody has that ability to have a recording studio in their home, right? A
Right.
lot do have a basement or something, or to practice and stuff like that. But do you have it where, like, maybe you're hired for an exceptional segment on an exceptional album? Could be very high end, and you don't want to record it from your computer in your basement if you don't have this setup. Do you ever handle that where session players or musicians who are going to have a bit, basically, on an album, will they come into you because of the sound to be able to add to an album that's being kind of put together? I mean, to me, that's pretty amazing. Like when you talk about the live feel, that's what I understood. That's what I did for the first recording that I was at on my friend's thing, and it freaked me out. And we'll talk about some of that, but the fear and what's expected, etc. But this is a little different, and it is always amazing to me that an album can be produced from around the world by one person. I don't get
Yeah.
it. It's incredible and it sounds good, but how the hell you can't be doing that in your living room, or can
Well,
you?
that's the thing. I mean, a lot of, so there's a famous bass player that's acquaintance of mine, Nathan East, and he's played with Peter Gabriel and Sting and Eric Clapton and all the big guys, and done tons of sessions. And he has a home studio that's one room, but it's just for tracking bass on somebody else's album. Now, he will be the first to tell you that he prefers to collaborate in real time, being in the same room with all the other musicians, because he thinks you get a better product by everybody being in the same space and being able to feed off each other and be able to talk to each other and all that kind of stuff. And there's definitely an energy that gets traded between musicians when they're playing together and all that kind of stuff. So that, he does that, but he also does, sometimes it's not practical for whatever reason for him to be in the UK or wherever some other country. And so, yeah, he has a home studio that does that. But again, he's operating at a very high level, and his studio, although it's humble in comparison to the kind of studio that I have, it's all he needs. But there are other times where there's a group of doctors, and forgive me, I can't remember the name of the band, but there's a group of doctors in Washington State that have a band, and they give, I think, most of their proceeds from the records to medical charities, and they all are sort of amateur musicians. And there's a guy here in my hometown who plays saxophone on all their records, and he will not record with anybody but me because I get the sound he hears in his head. I get that sound for him when I record it. And so he's I'm the only person he'll let record him. So he comes in and plays his sax solos, and then we send them off to the guys in Washington, and they drop them in the record and all that kind of stuff. And he's one of the few people who, when he says he only needs 2 hours of time, actually only needs 2 hours of time. But that's because he was a music educator, he was a musician in the military, and
Oh, wow.
he writes everything out. He's well rehearsed and well prepared when he comes in. So I mean, he comes in and we'll play through the song maybe 2 or 3 times. He'll give him a couple different choices, and we're done. So to answer your question, absolutely, there are, you do oftentimes need to go into a studio for certain things you just can't do in the bedroom. So I mean, but by and large, I mean, the things that are hard to get right in a home studio environment are things like horns, strings, drums. Those things are all really hard to get right outside of a professional space. You can do electronic keyboards, not like typically, again, grand pianos are harder to get done in a home studio
Mhm.
too, but you can do electronic sounds like synths and stuff like that pretty good at home. You can do guitars and basses pretty good at home. Although I did have somebody say to me one time, man, how do I get this incredible sound that you're getting on my guitar at my home studio? And I said, well, you can't, because I've got $10,000 worth of microphones on your guitar amp. And it's not the expense of the microphones that makes them good, but it's that they were the right mic for the right job and
Ah,
put in the right place. So I mean, it's you're paying for the equipment, you're paying for the sonic space, and you're paying for the expertise of the
mm,
person that does it. But there are some wonderful things that can be done at home. And I'll say this: if you come in to the studio and you've got a song that has multiple tempos, if you can program that click track at home and bring it in, man, that saves us a lot of time. And so that's one thing that really can be done at home and should be done at home,
mm,
where, like, especially like with the heavy metal bands that have like different time signatures, several different time signatures in their songs. At measure 35, we're going to change from 4/4 to 5/4. And then over at measure 72, we're going to slow down for 3 measures by 10 clicks. All that stuff has to be programmed if you're using a click track or a metronome, whatever you want to call it. And if you can do all that pre-production work at home, that's a big time saver
mm,
in the studio. So you're saving yourself tons of time, and you just make an audio file, tell me the BPM, I drop it in, and then we start making, tracks on top of it. I mean, that's really great. And you can do some basic, like, demo tracks if you want to put a little keyboard track and a scratch vocal track on it, so that we have a guide track, and we don't have to and we don't have to spend time creating that. We don't care about the sound quality as long as it's good enough not to be distracting. As long as it's like, good enough quality that it's intelligible and we can hear it and we can follow it, then that's a good thing for a guide track. Like if you're a solo artist, bring in a bunch of session musicians, and you can do like a piano and a vocal, or a guitar and a vocal that gives us a guide. Then we come in and eventually we'll replace that. But that
mm,
saves a lot of times. There's all kinds of little things you can do at home. And, if you've got good speakers and good headphones and good acoustic treatment at your home studio, which costs money, none of this stuff happens on the cheap, then maybe you can at least do some editing and stuff at home. One of the things that I encourage clients to do, if they are musically savvy, is to do all their vocal tuning and stuff like that at home instead of having me do it. Not that I mind doing it, I don't. But once you go down that rabbit hole of fixing timing and pitch and all that kind of stuff, that editing can take hours and hours and hours and hours to get right and to tweak and to be real critical of. And so that's something, if you've got the technique and the ability to do that at home, then I encourage you to do that at home, because I charge by the hour, and I'm glad to do it for you. But it's a very tedious, involved process. And when it comes to vocal tuning, I'll just say this, and we'll move on. I tend not to try and make things absolutely 100% pitch perfect. I tend to like to have uh, the human 2 or 3 cents off doesn't bother me. 30 cents off bothers me. So I tend not to perfect every single note. I tend just to take the hurt off so that it doesn't sound really out of pitch, because most people can't tell the difference between a 4 or 5 cent flat or sharp note, most of your listeners. So I don't usually get super picky. I just take the really objectionable things that need to be fixed and kind of fix those, especially with singers that either don't have the time or don't have the skill set yet to re-sing it any better. Because one of the things you'll find if a band's on the road or if they work a day job and it's hard for them to get in the studio, you don't want them having to like take a day off work unpaid to come back to the studio and re-sing something if I can take 3 minutes and fix it. Anyway, some of that tedious stuff can be done at home with the caveat that you have the right quality of software. But the big challenge at home is the acoustical treatment. That's the making sure that you're actually hearing what you think you're hearing. That's the really big challenge.
This is very fascinating. It's very similar to what we do too in the media world and in articles and creating magazines. It's like, please don't send me the smallest photo. And everybody's like, what size do you know? I'm like, don't touch it. Just don't touch it and send it to me because you're trying to edit. They overprocess files. Half the people need to stop with Photoshop because they don't understand color very well. What blows my mind is people don't also understand horizon lines. I'm like, geez. I mean, Joey, you take some better photos at times. I'm just saying.
Yeah, well, it's the same. It's true. I mean, when you try, the thing is, you've got to understand perspective. Well, first of all, the real truth that people are not going to want to hear is there's no such thing as perfect.
And that's the beauty. That is what builds character. And I don't know, if everything was perfect, how clinical do we go to a hospital and hospitals aren't perfect, as we all know. No. So it's like there is no such thing as perfection. We are all human, which means we all make mistakes. It's really hard for me to say because I'm a Virgo, but it's true. It's really annoying.
Well, the thing is, like with photography, I can relate it back to photography. Even though I'm blind, I know this. You can either have the foreground in focus or the background in focus, but neither one, you can't have them both perfectly in focus. It's the same thing with music. What you've got to do is make, and as a producer, this is kind of the choice that I get paid to help the artist make, is you've got to choose what parts of the song are the driving force and what parts are ornamental. And so that's the thing that's where experience that's where experience really pays off. And that's what you're paying for is that experience to know like what is the what. So I've got an African American gospel record that I'm in the middle of finishing right now. And one of the things that we decided early on, and the thing is, all the people that play in this band are super talented. I mean, every single one, from the guitar, piano, but they're all kind of doing their own thing. And they were a little bit busier than they needed to be. In other words, the musicians were not listening to each other as much as they should have. They were just all jammed. Now, they're all super talented and super good, but I talked to the client and said, look, we're going to have to make a decision here because there's a lot going on and it's real busy and there's no way for everything to be totally in focus. So there's going to be a couple people that have to get pushed to the ornamental. I hesitate to use the word background, but the ornamental side of this. So we decided, I told him my feelings were that the bass, the drum, and the vocal were the most important three elements, and that the guitar, backing vocals, and piano would have to be ornamental. And we all agreed on that, and that's the record we're making. And the bass player is just doing these things that without it, it just doesn't groove. The drummer's doing these things. Gospel music is all about emotion and feel, and is not particularly cerebral. There's music that's more made to be listened to, with the brain, and there's music that's made to be felt by the heart. Ultimately, in a perfect world, you'd have both, but in this case, these are like happy praise and worship songs about being joyful, and we just really felt like the lead vocal, the bass, and the drums had to take center stage. So the rest of the stuff has to be ornamental or a little bit further in the back, or a little out of focus if you want to think of it in visual terms. So anyway, that's a lot of what you're paying for when you hire a producer is someone to help you make those choices who's got a lot of experience.
Well, okay. Now this whole thing we were talking about it back in the day, the Beatles. And if I bring up Stevie Nicks, he may have a rant. I know.
No.
I know. But I mean, she's an amazing songwriter, but here's the thing. I almost feel like there's a producer, but should also be a consultant on the songwriting experience. Like it's two jobs in one, like in a way, because it's like there's a technical side, but then like I know what I have in my head to get it out, right? It's
Yeah.
not, I'm not writing musical notations. And I know there's people, even you were talking about the different timing, I've talked about it before. A rhythm guitarist didn't think that there was a 3/4. I mean, what? He's a rhythm guitarist and he does not believe in the waltz, but he says, oh yeah, there's waltzes. I'm like, what do you think a waltz is? It's a 3/4. No, no. Anyway, so we have musicians a lot of times that have no theory. And it doesn't
Right.
mean that they're bad musicians. Sometimes
Not at
they're
all.
the most amazing. They're better than anybody has theory. I mean, it's just like their ear, their soul, there's something just magical that happens. If you try to put them into theory land, you're going to ruin the magic land. So you need to have the partner that's got the theory land, and they should not fight. They should, but sometimes it does. And sometimes that creates even more amazing stuff or really bad stuff. It just is the way it is, man. It's the luck of the draw. But there is this thing of people like who can paint a canvas in their head, have it, sing it. Like I wrote a song the other day in the car. It's incredible in that I know what it is, where it's going, and it's really, really deep and it's odd. And I would never be able to just walk into you and say, okay, here's the song now, work with me on it. So where are we on those levels of saying, okay, Joey, I've got this song. I've got this idea. I know I need to record this because it needs to happen now because it's in here now, but I don't know how to explain this. I can play it and I can explain it as best I can. Where do we go with that kind of stuff? Because some people need that other person, like Stevie Nicks needed Lindsey Buckingham, the poor dude, like, and other guys. How many people she went through to work with her music, but she's a great songwriter and everything, but
Yeah, I mean, she's very talented, but you're right. She does not have the theoretical. The thing about
I learned later in life, though, she did. So I got to.
her, this is something very common. What the theory is, people get afraid of it, but what the theory is just a more effective way to communicate. So
Yeah.
what it's a language. So what happens is you have the artist, and really the artist needs to focus on being the artist and emoting the art that they want to bring forth into the world. And then they can leave someone like me to handle everything else. And so I can talk to my conductor and my string arranger and say, hey, here's where I want the strings. Here's the key we're in. Here's the tempo. I want to do accelerandos here. I want to do retardandos there. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to, and we can talk about all these technical things. And the reason that the technical language is good is because it allows us to more efficiently get to the sound that we want. But sometimes there are people I know who have doctorates in music who are really not that great a player and really don't do real well in the studio. I know a guy who has a doctorate in music, no names, but came in the studio for something really simple. Should have taken him 30 minutes to do this. Anyway, 3.5 hours later, we finally got the take. And, that was a real budget blow up because he was charging by the hour, which most musicians charge by the song in our area because that's just what you can get. If you're in Nashville, New York, LA, and you're part of the union, there's an hourly rate and all that kind of stuff, but you have to be playing with the big boys to make that work. If you're a part-time session musician, you really can't, and depending on what area, and you really can't charge an hourly rate. And if you do, then I expect you to come in and knock it out. And it was something that was real simple and took 3 hours. So that's 2 hours more in studio time, 2 hours more in the percussion, in the percussionist time. And that really was a disappointment. And so I didn't call that guy back again for a session. Even though he was incredibly talented live, he wasn't very good in the studio. The point though is that you know I can I can talk to people on whatever level we need because music's all about communication. That's what it really is. When we talk about what is music, it's a language, it's a communication. And so there's lots of different ways to talk about it and communicate with it. So you just need to find the right partner that can understand what you're saying and then translate that to other people. I've got a talk that I do called How to Avoid Sound Blindness. And it's been a keynote speech in a bunch of big conferences and stuff like that since 2020. I think was it 2023? Yeah, 2023. I've done it for Berkeley. I've done it for the ISMER conference. I've done it for the Audio Engineering Society. I've done it for all these different. I've done it for a college in Canada. Anyway, one of the things that I pull up, and I'm a blind man using visual aids, but I have a set of colored blocks going from left to right, and there are three of them. And the colors don't matter; they're just arbitrary. But the first color is this yellow block, and it says artist intention. So the first question we have to ask before we do any kind of recording or songwriting or anything else is, what is the intention of my art? What is the message that I want to transmit? What am I trying to say? And then once we establish that, we create a vehicle through which that message flows, and that is the musical arrangement. Now we're creating this musical arrangement, and that can be what key we're in, that can be the tempo, that can be how many instruments we have playing the musical arrangement. Is it just guitar and vocal, or do we need a symphony? What do we need? So we create the musical arrangement, and then the final element with my red block at the end. I should have said the middle block was blue, but the final block at the end of this process is now the technical communication, which is the recording process. So that's where we dial in the sounds, we decide the textures, we decide all these different things. But when you're having a hard time making the technical side work, it's usually because there was an unclear musical arrangement. So it's not that the technical side's not important. It certainly is, and I spend my entire life doing it. And there's a lot of science behind it, physics and how sound moves and all these different things. But you have to get all three parts of the step right. If you take any shortcuts or have any ambiguity in any one of the three color blocks, you're going to have a product that doesn't work. So it's really important to have these conversations, and that's why I charge a different rate being somebody's producer than I did do being their engineer. If I'm just their engineer, they've already got this stuff sorted. I'm just setting up the gear, making sure everything runs, pushing the buttons, hitting record. I'm doing all those things, which are very important. But if I'm your producer, then I'm in there helping you make this roadmap at every level of the process, from the songwriting to the arrangement, to the performance, to the technical side. And the first thing, in an ideal universe, the band would have the budget to allow me to come see them play a couple shows live, to really get to know who they are. That's really an important part of the process as well. Just so you make sure that you're taking that first block, the artistic intention, to make sure you're really hitting a home run on that, because that's really the big deal. So anyway, as a beginning band, it's important to kind of think about this stuff, to write it down, to talk about it, even if it's not with someone like me, amongst yourselves. Really sit down and drill down into what you want to do, and try to make it as clear and easy to understand as possible.
Interesting. I was listening to a podcast about Rick Rubin, a musician.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I love Rick Rubin. I'm just it's a creative aspect, right? And it was a musician that I didn't even know who it was, and then he's done all this stuff. You know how it is. And newer, younger musician that I didn't know, and then I was like, oh, look at this dude. He's like he's good, and not necessarily my cup of tea, but who cares? And he was talking about him and the band going in to Rick Rubin. They're like this is like the most badass song kind of thing. They play it for him, and he looks at them. He goes, "Yeah, it's orange." And they all look around. He goes, when you're ready to go green, call me. And they're like, and I'm not saying it 100%, but it was basically that. It's like, you've got the red, orange, green as a traffic light. And he's like, you're orange right now. And when you're ready. And he's like, he's not the musician. He just knows what sounds good. And that's what Rick is always.
Yeah,
that's interesting to me.
He's a real unicorn. He's a guy who makes other people do their best work. So he's really like a facilitator. But according to him, and I have a hard time understanding this or believing it, to tell you the truth, but according to him, he doesn't really know much about music theory or about the technical side.
Like Clive Davis. Same thing.
Yeah, it's real interesting. I have a hard time understanding that universe and how they make that work. But I mean, he obviously does, and he's obviously helped a lot of people find success and find their artistic vision. So he's kind of like more of an inspirational, motivational coach than anything else.
Cracks me up. He's in a yoga position half of the time.
Amazing.
Then he's got
It's
rappers
amazing.
walking around and like, doing hardcore rap or death metal or whatever is going on too. It's like, what is going on here? I
Yeah,
love it.
he really, again, I can't, my brain doesn't fully comprehend how he does what he does because
People can't comprehend you either, Joey. I
yeah,
mean, you're not
I
supposed to
just
be blind playing with a bunch of knobs in a studio and
yeah,
understanding how to do it, but you do.
well,
And
but
that's the beauty of it all to
but
me.
for me is I have a deep understanding of the craft built on
Music,
stud
songwriting, and singing
yeah,
too.
built on study and lots of time spent. So it's hard for me to imagine someone that's so prolific that really says, "Well, I don't really know anything about. I don't know what microphone to use." I mean, like that's a real mystery to me. It's hard for me to understand that world.
Well,
But
what do you
yeah,
think? Clive Davis is the same thing. Clive Davis knew how to hear music.
yeah, yeah.
And
It's
oh, he
incredible.
still does. I shouldn't he still hears. It's amazing his career. I mean, just
Oh
watching
gosh, yeah.
I watched that biopic on him, this documentary recent that was out, I think through Netflix, and I was just like, God, I mean, I felt so bad for him with Whitney Houston.
That's one of the saddest stories in the business. I mean,
Is
it's
it?
just
Is it?
yeah.
It's still like,
She
times on the radio, I'm like, I can't turn Whitney off. That would be the worst thing in the world.
no, she's incredible.
So and nervous, which is my next question for you is nerves.
Yeah,
She was nervous. She still put herself out there as a backup and then having to go so young. Was it 17 or 19, I think? And 17 when she was really out there, then 19 was like, oh, I'm really having to be out in front of audiences at the front, not the back, right?
yeah.
You got to think like Sheryl Crow was like background for Michael Jackson and people. And then suddenly, but she has, she's got that chutzpah to go out there. But Whitney was nervous. Carly Simon is like not good at live stuff because of stage
Not
fright, So what is that like when someone, I mean, you could have someone super talented and the nerves coming in like, I know I'm not like this. I'm not any of that. I mean, I'm okay as a singer-songwriter. I'm okay. But going into a recording studio, they made me play a guitar I wasn't ready for. I was like suddenly in this whole world and my nerves got me. Like I was shaking. I didn't understand what was going on. It was like going to the doctor's office when I had my arm surgery and
yeah.
they wouldn't tell me what was going on with anesthesia. And then it's like, here, Lisa, we can sit, yeah, have a little wine on the side. I'm just saying that's kind of what it was. And I don't think that was I mean, it felt better, but it really wasn't better.
No.
And so I wanted to touch on that because nerves make people do things maybe they shouldn't do.
Well, there's I'd say three things about that. The first thing is, yeah, altering your ability to comprehend the universe with drugs or alcohol when you're recording is a terrible idea because you feel better and like you're performing your best ever. When you play it back the next day, you're going to hate it. And it's so that's kind of I've seen that happen over and over and over and over again. And I've had people. I don't allow alcohol in my studio actually because or drugs. I'm just we're there to make records. But I've seen people go out and get lit and then come back and sing, and they think they're doing great, and the next day they're like, "Oh my god, this is terrible." And so that's one thing you should avoid is any kind of coloration to your perception. But the next thing is studios have a responsibility not to look too clinical. A lot of them like to look very scientific, very, very corporate and very intimidating. And we try really hard not to have that look. Professional, yes, but intimidating, no. So you don't want a sterile clinical environment. But the biggest thing is to have fun and to have someone around that makes you not nervous. We crack a lot of jokes. We are always joking around and laughing and having a good time and encouraging people to be their best. And so there's a lot of psychology that goes on. That's part of the job of the producer is to really be a therapist because, to make people feel comfortable, to make them feel uninhibited, to make them feel creative, and to do all those things, in a way that's honest. And so it does take a certain person. There are some people have come in to my studio and been really nervous and have really hated the recording process because someone they worked with before was not helpful, was overly critical. and just made them feel worse and never made them feel good. Now, that I'm not going to lie to you and tell you something's good if it's not, but I'm going to make you feel comfortable. So one way to do that is to say, you know what I really love is this, this, and this. You know, I think we can do better. I feel like you can do a better take of this, this, and this. Why don't we try that out and see if we can get something a little bit better? You can tell people that there's a problem without going, this sucks. And a
Hmm.
lot of people don't do that. It sounds simple, but a lot of people just don't do that. So interpersonal communication skills are really important too.
Challenge is a good word.
Well, yeah, I mean, but I that's not my style. I wouldn't have said it the way he said it.
But you know what? And I don't think you said it like, call me when it's green, but it was like
Yeah,
that kind of, it's orange, but you know what? They went back and then suddenly one of them went this and it turned into like a number one hit.
yeah,
So,
yeah, absolutely. But I
but
mean,
you,
and, you know,
yeah.
sometimes you're not ready. Sometimes you need more time to practice. You need more time to refine. You need more time to work on it, and all that stuff. I mean, like for example, I had a guy who came in and he had a steel plate in his jaw. And I told him, I said, when you're singing, your mouth sounds like it's real tightly closed. And he said, well, I've got a steel plate in my jaw. And I said, well, I'm a vocal coach, and I know a little bit about tension in your jaw and where we tend to keep tension as singers. And I said, I've got a handful of exercises I want you to do. You go home, do all these exercises for the next 3 weeks, and then we will reconvene and cut your vocals. And so he did that, and it turned out great. Everything sounded great. And it helped him loosen up and get the sound that we wanted to get. So sometimes you have to take a break and go home and do your homework. Basically, I gave him physical therapy exercises for his jaw. Uh,
That's
but
amazing.
but also, I said, practice singing these songs in the car, practice singing these songs in the shower. So you sing these songs you want to record several times a day for the next 3 weeks. Do all these little exercises I've given you, and then let's come back and reconvene. And I guarantee you, I promise you that you will be happy with the results.
Mm.
And so we did that, and they were happy with the results. And then we had to fix a few things here and there, but by and large, he was singing, 2 or 3 takes, and he had the take he wanted. And for someone that doesn't do it for a living, that's good. And that was it. I mean, so just you just want a partner that can really help you do it, but realize that it's a growing process. And if you have to pause for a couple weeks to, like, again, I was producing a record for a band that was on my label. I had a label for a short period of time, and it was not really, it wasn't really successful. But this band was really great. They broke up right before the album was supposed to be released, so that was a real disappointment. We
That sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we really had a special record, but anyway, there was a bass part that the bass player just wasn't nailing. I said, go home, practice this for the next 2 weeks, and come back and play it, because I said, this is just not happening today. No matter how long we spend in here working on this, you're not going to master this
Yeah.
today.
That
So,
was one of my questions to you too, is like someone's not quite getting it. When do you call like, hey, let's just stop? Because sometimes it's just going to get actually worse because now you're starting to freak the hell out.
well, that's right. There's a skill in knowing when you're hitting the law of diminishing returns. So you have to say, now that's a real tricky call, because if I book you for an 8 hour session and you come in and with 2 hours we're not getting anything done, then you're just, things are getting worse and worse and worse. There's no point beating a dead horse. By the
Mhm.
same token, I also have to eat. So I can't afford for you to book 8 hours and use two and not pay me for that. So I usually find some sort of nice compromise where I'm like, look, I'm going to charge you for this many hours. I'll charge you for 5 hours instead of 8. Go home and practice. We'll find a way to make this work. But there is a time where you hit it and go, man, we need to call it a day, because we're just not going to get anything done. We're going to get frustrated. We're going to get irritable. Things are getting worse. Generally speaking, that doesn't happen with my studio very often, because we keep things so light and friendly and fun. And sometimes I'll say, hey, let's take a 5-minute break, get something to drink, walk around, talk a minute, and then let's try it again. Sometimes that will do it. Or sometimes I'll say, hey guys, why don't we go ahead and take an early dinner break? Let's take half an hour, go get something to eat, and then come back. And sometimes that will do it.
Mhm.
So, but over time, you develop the spidey sense to know when you're hitting that wall.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no point. I've learned a long time. It's like sometimes beating it, don't. I mean, it's sometimes you want things to flow, and sometimes it's just it is one of the best things. The orange thing, right? I'm going back to the orange word. It turned out to be a blessing to them. It's like
Oh yeah.
you may not want to hear the negative stuff, but the negative stuff's going to be what, lifts you up.
Well,
It
you can be honest and still helpful and friendly,
Mhm.
and but still tell someone, hey, this isn't working. The first album is always the hardest. My first album that I did, I was just driving myself nuts over this mix, and I just hated it. I was like, "Oh God, this just everything about it sucks. I just hate it." And I said, "Okay, I need to take a break." So I went and I left for like 2 hours, went and had dinner, and like just hung out with some friends, and just took a break. And I came back and played the mix, and it was perfect. And I was like, "Did somebody come here and remix this while I was gone?" And of course, that's not true. Nobody did. But what happened was I was getting too caught up into the minutia of the detail.
Yeah, you're too close,
I was
and you're
too
doing
close
it too
to it.
much.
Yeah, I was too
Yeah.
close to it, and so that was my first real lesson in learning how to pull back and learning how to, like, look at it and listen to the whole how are things working together,
Mm.
and as opposed to, like, obsessing over every single nuance on every single thing. I mean, you can obsess to the point of just making yourself crazy. So I learned early on not to do that.
Nancy's thing, she always talks about there's time to walk away.
Yeah.
And that's I think why we have the she's a Taurus and I'm the Virgo, and we call it the tortoise and the hare. I'm the hare, she's the tortoise. And she's slow and steady and I'm like hop 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 da, 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 da. And it's the complete opposites, but we work and then yeah, when we argue, it's good. It's good. It's very creative and and we should just do that as a podcast. Really. It would be amusing for people, but you may
Argument podcast. That'd be great.
oh, but it's what balances it. And
Yeah,
and
no,
I
there's a
think
great balance there. It sounds like a perfect
there's a
relationship.
balance. It's a balance because you like as an artist for her when she was painting, she's absorbed in it and it's her work and it's her thing. And if she just stayed there, she gets it to this beautiful perfection. And if you do one more paint stroke, that's it. You've lost
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
You've
No,
lost it.
I totally agree. Yeah.
And so she had to really she's talked about that on so many podcasts about art. And if it's music, whatever, you can overproduce and screw up a good thing so
Oh,
easily.
yeah.
Writing, music, anything in the creative arts. And, some people edit as they write. And I've, Virgo again, annoying. And now I've really had to learn, get it out. Don't edit. Don't think about it. Who are you to play God at that point? Let whatever needs to come out and then go back. Now I know people who edit it successfully. That's their thing. Works wonderfully for them. But I keep going like, but what if you didn't?
No, I do the exact
You
same thing
know,
when I write. I go as far as the initial inspiration will take me, and then I put it down, and I come back a day or two later, and then
see,
I
take
use my
that break.
intellect to refine it and edit after the initial inspiration. That's I really like that. I think that works really really well. As you say, some people can do it the other way around, but most people do not successfully do that.
I love it. Joey, I think we're going to have more of these conversations. This is beginning. It's the beginning of many about the actual working. It's creativity and how to do it
It applies to
effectively.
all sectors. I mean, you can apply all the stuff we talk about today to life in general.
It is. Sometimes
So
you have to walk away. You have to have the right partners. You have to be
yes,
smart, have a roadmap,
yeah,
and even if you don't know, start talking to people. And that's the thing.
and you're afraid to
A
learn. It's
goal.
okay to make mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes. That's the thing.
That's important. If you don't
Yeah,
make mistakes, you aren't doing
you're not
stuff.
gonna you're not gonna grow. Well,
You're
that's the thing. At the end of my talks, wherever I am, I always want these young kids that are out there trying to make these records and stuff to not stress so much and not put so much on their shoulders, and to realize that if they're doing it right, they're going to grow. And so, what's perfect today may not be perfect tomorrow. When they look back on it 20 years later, they may see things they could have done differently. But I will say, I mean, I really think that allowing room for what I call grace to grow and to be a work in progress is real important to this whole situation as well.
look at it this way. You go on a road trip, there is always going to be a detour and there's going to be a slowdown in traffic. There's going to be construction. You can have the best road trip mapped out. And if it goes according to plan 100%, it's going to be sterile. We're talking about those clinical places. I mean, now, it's like, no, art has creativity, it's got warmth to it. Sometimes it has cold because it has to.
Yeah,
All those different emotions. But, we're in this world of technology, and technology is trying to be warm like humans. And so the human part of it is the most crucial thing that we have right now today. While
totally.
we use technology as tools, humanity, being humans, is important. Mistakes are everything. Detours are everything because sometimes those detours, number one, save your life.
Sure.
Sometimes you're in a slowdown, and if you were there at the time you were supposed to be, you might have been the person in the car accident.
Yeah,
That's how I look at
there's
it. So it just is, if you do not allow the natural forces of life to be part of your plan, which I think is the biggest mistake everybody makes. And I know because, again, I am annoying as a Virgo. I'm annoying. I will map it out and it must go as planned. If it doesn't, I'm like, meh, meh. But I really do know. And once I learned the flow of this, my life is way happier this way.
totally.
You just go, oh, whatever. Because everybody has their own language.
As a blind brain tumor survivor, many things health wise do not go my way, and I've had to learn. I have some limitations, like I can't drive myself and things like that. So I've had to learn to have backup plans, to my backup plans, and to be flexible. It's really being flexible and being able to take a detour is really important.
Joey, I'm almost 51. I
No,
have to learn how to be flexible.
yeah, I got some exercises for you.
I know you do. I know you do. Well, everyone, keep up with Joey at joeystuckey.com. His link is in the episode notes as always. Thank you, B, for being here on Big Blend Radio and listening in. Joey is here every fourth Sunday, and it's always a fun, fun time. Usually we have playlists and all these wonderful things, but before we go now, as Joey is talking about being a brain tumor survivor, this leads into our next episode coming up, which is the fourth Sunday of September, which leads up to Joey Stuckey Alive Day. And this is an amazing, special, it's his birthday, one of his birthdays. He gets to have
I get
two.
two.
And we're talking about how to look at things in life, detours, etc. And Joey, you want to tell everybody what's happening for a Live Day? Why you having a Live Day? Why do you have two birthdays?
Yeah, yeah. So it's certainly not because I want to get any older. Well, I guess I want to get older. That's the only choice. That's the best choice. Yeah. So when I was about 18 months old, they discovered I had a brain tumor, and when they removed the brain tumor, they didn't think I was going to live. And so my mom and dad, they said, "Look, we're going to do the surgery, but he's probably not going to make it. And if he does make it, he'll never walk or talk." And they did the surgery. I walk and talk just fine. I have a metal hip, a metal shoulder. I'm blind. I have no endocrine system, no pituitary gland or any of that kind of stuff. So I have a lot of interesting things to compensate for. But instead of making that day of the brain tumor surgery a day of fear and dread and sadness and, oh, this is the day you almost died, my parents reframed it quite brilliantly, especially for a small child, into the day that you survived and made it a day of affirmation. So that's something we celebrated quietly my entire life. We celebrate. My mom always believes that you should take every opportunity to celebrate triumphs, and my dad does too. So we did that. But then in 2017, I thought, there are a lot of people that need to hear this story, my story, so that they can apply it to their story. And there are a lot of people that are overcoming adversity every day. And wouldn't it be great to celebrate to the joy of music and the reveling in life through that music? Wouldn't that be a fun thing to do, to everybody to get together and do that? So 2017, we started Joey Stuckey Alive Day, which is a free concert. So it costs absolutely nothing to attend, and it's full of really talented musicians, all of whom get the idea. They get the purpose of sharing joy and love and triumphs together. And the mayor issued a proclamation, so it's an officially recognized celebration in Macon, Georgia. And so it's cool. And we've had a lot of amazing talent over the years. This year, my buddy Tom Rule has opened every Alive Day with his solo piano performance. He was thinking about maybe not doing it this year, and I said, "Man, look, I don't want to break tradition. This has become a tradition with you kicking the festival off, and I really want you to do it again this year if you would." So he's doing it again this year. Then I'm going to perform with my acoustic duo. So it'll be me and my buddy Charles Arnold performing just acoustic guitar and percussion. And then we have a really cool different act as the climax of the festival, and that is a group of 3 legendary female Georgia artists who are doing a songwriters in the round presentation where they're going to all play. They're going to back each other up and play each other's songs and do that. And that's going to be Caroline Aiken, Diane Durrett, and Liz Martinez. And they are all fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. So they are just so cool. And you've probably heard of all of them, but Caroline Aiken has been a Georgia treasure for quite some time, and we're real excited to have her. And we were excited because this year, through one of the sponsors, we were able to get the venue at a really good price. The venue's usually part of the real expense is having the venue, and so we were able to get the venue at such a good price that I was able to actually pay the bands more than I've been able to pay before. So we're able to really get some a little. I was able to use the money to go to the venue to help me bring in some more bands. We're doing 3 hours this year. We originally had 4 hours, and then that artist was unable to make it at the last minute. So we're doing 3 hours, but it's going to be pretty exciting, I have to say. And it's all acoustic. So it's all acoustic music, which is, we've never done an all acoustic show before. So this is a little something different. I try to have every live day, we try to have it as a unique event, a little bit different. And over the years, like, we've had so many interesting things. We've had hip hop, we've had jazz, we've had choirs, we've had singer-songwriters, we've had full bands, we've had metal, we've had pop, we've had blues. So we try to make it something that everyone can enjoy. So I'm excited about that. That's going to be happening this year. A live day officially is September 29th, which I believe is a Monday. But this year we're having the festival on October 4th. So we were having trouble getting venues the date we wanted. Originally what I wanted was on September 27th. But anyway, couldn't make that happen. So October 4th was the next best thing. Talk about those detours.
Well, but you know what? Yeah, you may have it may be even better.
Yeah.
And, you get to celebrate fall, y'all. So,
Yeah,
I can say y'all when we get to Georgia. And
you better say y'all.
everyone, Sunday, September 28th is when we're going to do a special show with, we're going to have some of the musicians on the show with Joey. We're going to be doing a special show dedicated to the show that's going to happen, the actual show, which is on October 4th. So here on Big Blend Radio, tune in. Like I said, Joey's here every 4th Sunday, and it'll be October 28th. So listen to that. I don't know why I thought it was the 21st when we were talking earlier, Joey, but that's it. It's like,
well, I was allowing you to be incorrect.
Yeah, see, look how he was. He didn't give me an orange pill after that.
The only reason I knew better was because I knew what day the live day was on.
I know. I'm like, whoa, but you made me look at twice,
Yeah.
I'm used to it being in September, but so I was like, oh no, we're all good. And then I'm like, yeah, no, we're good. So everyone, September 28th, please tune in here on Big Blend Radio. Joey's here every 4th Sunday. Of course, you can listen as it airs or anytime later. And also be sure to check out October 4th if you are in the greater Atlanta area, which is, Macon is south of it, and
Middle Georgia.
Go, yeah. Go to Georgia, man. It's peaches and movies and
Yeah.
yeah, I love Georgia. I love swamps and camellia flowers. And yeah, we'll be back in Georgia next year, January, for a few weeks. So hopefully we'll get to go see Joey again. Yep.
So
I do too. It's been, oh my gosh, we didn't see you all this year, did we? Oh, well,
I don't know.
we'll fix that. Maybe we'll record a song and I won't be all jittery. How about that?
Oh, you won't, because it'll be just us chickens.
Okay. I like that. Fuck. Thanks, Joey, everyone. JoeyStuckey.com. Take care. Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio. Keep up with our shows at bigblendradio.com.